So with Ocular AI, what happened? When we went into Y Combinator, our initial idea was to build like an internal search platform. So basically what it means is like you have a computer with 1,000 people. You have a company with 1,000 people.
Yeah.
But when you have 1,000 people working together, there tends to be silos of information. Right? For example, when you're working at Google, there might be someone working on something related and there's information that you want, but it's very hard to discover. Right? So we set out to build a platform that would allow companies to basically create an internal search platform that is sort of like an internal Google, where if you want to find something, you can just type it out, find it out, open it up, or reach out to the person who has it. So that was the initial idea.
Yeah, I think it's different today because, we've had many conversations on this platform, me and you, but now you're on the other side and I'm actually interviewing you. Feels weird.
Oh yeah.
It feels weird.
It's a different feeling.
There's some formality of something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's also just the unexpected nature of where the conversation will take us. When you have a book, it's always like you have a set topics to discuss. But nevertheless, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. All right. My guest today is ex-Google software engineer. Yeah.
Cool.
Ex-Y Combinator student, is it? I don't know if you're a student.
You could say
you'll
student.
Be a student there. Student? Mm-hmm. Now, startup co-founder and CTO at Ocular AI. A dear friend, if I could, if I do have the privilege to say that, and partner in intellectual discourse, and making a sense of the political and status quo of home and just around us. So I'm happy to have you on the podcast. Zimbabwean-born Louis Murerwa.
Let's go. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. That was a very comprehensive one.
Yeah.
And I'll touch back on the, intellectual discourse. I think we've had a lot of conversation, and I think that's where we've connected the most. And it's been always a pleasure to have a aspiring intellectual partner in these things.
No, that's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for taking time, man. I know your time is very precious, so thank you for doing this.
You're welcome, man. I'm glad to be here. Excited to see where this conversation takes us.
So I think what I want to start with is like maybe a profile of you. We know you grew up in Zimbabwe, like say where you grew up, it's just a little bit, and maybe primary school, where you went to high school, and then boom, you're now in America. Fast forward, you're now in America. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit, you know how Bill Gates say, we connect the dots looking backwards or something like that. So maybe there might be something that might tell us something about the present today. So if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, let me jump in. So I was born in Gweru. It's a beautiful town in the middle of Zimbabwe. Very famous for its chilly weather. But, just grew up over there. I spent most of my life there, the first 18 years of my life.
Yeah.
I went to primary school at St. Paul, Takunda Primary School, For the first 2 years, it was a government school. But then after that, I transferred to St. Paul's Primary School, still in Mukoba. It's like a Catholic-run school. So it was a whirlwind of 7. It was the longest 7 years ever at that point. But looking back, it was just a short time of my life. But it really shaped how I see the world. Just growing in that environment, Mukoba, high density suburb, you see a lot of things, experience a lot of things. But most of all, it was a fun childhood. So I had a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
And finishing grade 7, I went to St. Patrick's High School.
St. Patrick's.
That's
also in Gweru. Okay.
Yeah, it's also in Gweru as well. It's an Anglican-run church, Anglican church-run school. So it's, just like all mission schools, it's like in the rural areas.
Yeah.
Over there, I went from Form 1 to Form 6, and it was also like a pivotal, experience in my life. I think most of my friends right now as well, they just come from the same school because we just spend a
Hmm.
lot of time together. Just
Yeah.
imagine landing at a school of 12 years, then graduating at like 18 years, 6 years later. Those people, you grew up with them. So just looking back, I have fond memories, exciting times. Then post high school,
Hmm.
I ended up going to University of Zimbabwe for like a year.
Oh, really?
Um,
You did college in Zim for a year?
oh yeah, I did college in Zim for a year. So I was actually applying to the US when I graduated from high school, but I didn't get into any schools. I mean, I got into one school, but they were like, you have to pay like $30,000. But
In the US?
yeah, in US, in the situation that I was in, $30,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a
That's
lot, man. Well,
that was
when
even
you're in
more than the
Zim
valuation
too,
of our house. Huh?
when you're in Zim and they tell you $30,000.
30,000. So it was just like,
Hmm.
okay, this is not gonna work. So uh, instead of taking a gap year, of course, my parents didn't let me just sit around at home for like a year. I ended up
Hmm.
going to University of Zimbabwe. So over there, I was studying engineering for like a year, and I was also applying to the US. So I remember I used to just take my pocket money, write the SATs, because that was the
Oh,
dream.
wow. Yeah.
It was like, yeah, let's do this. But at the same time, I was trying to balance like, college work there and applying to the US. Then I remember in April of 2017, yeah, a decision came from Dartmouth College that I had been accepted. And that that is what that's all I needed at that point, and it really changed my life. So I
Yeah.
ended up in the US, and everything is now, the dots connect looking back now, but
Yeah.
at that
Wait.
point it was.
Mhm. Were you like were you like relentlessly trying to go to the US and leave Zim like post high school? Or it was something that like everyone else was doing, writing SATs? I know in my high school everyone was just writing SATs and then
Mhm.
people who had money were doing it. I wasn't as interested as everyone else, funny reason. But I think not everybody was doing it out of they want to go. It was doing it because it's a thing that people do,
People
like
do.
after high school. For you, what was it? Was it like there's a bigger market there? Do you have any understanding of it, or you was just like, let's try this thing? Because
I
you're
think
even
mostly,
forking out your own money too. So I'm like,
yeah. I mean, it
that's
was a dream.
convincing.
It was probably driven by, so USUP
Hmm.
used to take a couple people from our school yearly or here and
Hmm.
there, and we would see, especially students ahead of us, they would get into USAP, write the SATs, then they would go to the US, right? So I
Yeah.
know one, two, like three of them or four of them that I personally knew by then. So it was a matter of like, okay, these guys, I know them and they've done it. And
Okay.
I think there's a future in this thing, right? And
Hmm.
I really believe that it was my, I guess, way out at that point.
Yeah.
So that's that's why it was just a belief. Like there's something there, And you
Yeah.
go on Facebook, you see these people in these colleges, you're like, man, I really wanna go and see what it's
Yeah.
like, 'Cause
Yeah.
it was
Okay.
just like, what, like how is it like, because your mind is trying to. When I was in Zimbabwe in high school, my mind was actually trying to make sense of like, how does the US even look like? Because you're
Hmm.
reading all these books, you're seeing all these
Yeah.
movies, but
Movies. Yeah.
you just wanna understand like how that world works, right? So I think that was one of
Hmm.
those many factors where I was like, man, I think there might be something here. But I wasn't sure what was gonna happen, but it was just like a dream of like, "Damn, I could go there," and you see people do it, and I thought it was doable, but it was a
Yeah.
tough journey though.
How does it feel when you know in Dartmouth, like you've made it, like you're crossing over? How does it feel? What's the sentiment around leaving or arriving
Hmm.
generally?
Oh yeah, living. I think for me, I was just ready to let's see what's happening next. But of
Hmm.
course, there was. I mean, there was a lot of family as well, which was also involved in that decision, right? Because
Hmm.
I was the first in my family as well to just go to college in some other country. So you
Yeah.
can imagine how your mom's sisters would feel, right? So
Hmm.
there was a lot of fear, I guess, from my mom's side as well. Like, what's happening here? Can someone just go to another country, get a scholarship, and just go?
Hmm.
So it was one of those things as well where you were like a little bit tense. But for me personally, I was kind of excited. I mean,
Hmm.
I had spent the last 2 years of my life in Harare and I did everything I wanted to do. So I think I knew the country. So I was like, you know what? This is a new opportunity that I should embrace. So
Yeah.
I I did most of the stuff, reached out to my man or got some uh vaccinations done,
Yeah.
then got a ticket, then took a flight
That's it.
and
Yeah.
I was out. So it was kind of surreal
Yeah.
just being out like that. But I think it was also a feeling of like, okay, a feeling of triumph. Like, you've worked at this thing for a long time and now it's
Yeah.
happened
Hmm.
and you kind of feel relief. But also you're in a state where you don't know what's going to happen. So a
Yeah.
little bit of fear
Exploring
as well.
uncharted territory.
Exactly. It's like you don't know anybody where you're going and you haven't seen anybody who's gone there. So what's going to
Yeah.
happen there? And it was a
And
big jump.
you were on a like full scholarship, right?
Yeah, yeah. When I got into Dartmouth, I got a full scholarship. So there was this King King Scholarship, which was funded by an alumni. So they've gone to
Okay.
the school, did amazing things in their life. So they came back and say, look, I'm gonna sponsor 6 kids every year from countries which are not doing so well. So I didn't apply to that scholarship specifically. I just applied to the school. But I got chosen to be part of that scholarship, and it was very fundamental for my college because they helped me
Hmm.
set up a lot of things.
Yeah.
And another thing as well was like, during application, I applied to 20 schools. You end up getting into two, so
Yeah.
you can imagine the relief. So yeah, so lending at Dartmouth, I think most of the stuff was taken care of by that scholarship specifically. So
Yeah.
it was a great opportunity, and I can't thank them enough.
Mm. Wow. Dartmouth, then Google. Like, what's preparing you, like, from Dartmouth? You say you're doing engineering, right? And then,
Yeah, initially I wanted to do engineering. You learn at a school, you see people like you as well from same backgrounds, they're doing engineering. And, Zimbabwe is like you're doing engineering as well. So I took some pre-engineering classes like math.
yeah.
But then I just did the math for how engineering was set up at Dartmouth College. Like you had to spend 5 years to complete the degree, and other people were finishing in 4 years.
Yeah.
And at the same time as well, the exit opportunities for hardcore engineering were tough. And that was the time when big tech was at the top,
Was
basically in
booming.
2017.
Yeah.
And those odds, and also seeing other people, like there was this guy doing computer science as well called Ebenezer, just a stream, like what's it called? We call a stream, like a class ahead.
Yeah, class
So
ahead.
I just did my math and I ended up taking the computer science track. And another decision as well was that like I had done some computer science like in at UZ. So I was
Okay.
actually, one funny thing, I was actually the best student for my class for Java, and they used to call me Mr. Java. So,
You see, connecting dots. You
so I
see?
guess that's the connection where I ended up like, okay, let me try this computer science thing.
Yeah.
So from then on, I just switched to computer science and I never looked back.
Wow. Okay. So your decision is informed by some background in computer science and just like the people around you, then they're like, okay, there's people who are doing this. Okay, I can do it too.
Yeah, mostly it's like looking at like, okay, like, I mean, we're gonna graduate in 5 years. What's the plan? Because like, this is not my home, right?
Yeah.
There's two plans. It's either you can fly back or you can stay here. But if you want to stay here, you have to find a job. But if
Yeah.
you want to find a job, you can't just find any job, right? You have to
Yeah.
find a job where they can sponsor your visa.
True.
And if you want your visa to be sponsored, it seems like tech CS is the best way path. Is the best path towards that, right? So I think it was a lot of these smaller decisions compounding over time where I realized that, okay, I think if I consider everything that I'm working with, I think going into tech might be a better decision.
You say they were calling you Mr. Java. Do you think at that point you're discovering some form of passion for like coding, or it's just like, I'm enjoying this thing, I can even do it, and it's the same decision that's like you're now at Dartmouth and you're like, I can do this, or you're like, I think I have some form of passion for like coding in a sense?
I think the way I approached probably like computer science, especially like even in Zimbabwe, it was also like a compounding decision from high school where like computer science for our high school was a gated space where the teacher who was in charge to pick you, it was so politicized. And I always had this feeling that I would crush this thing, but I just couldn't do. And it just felt, so demotivating, kind of seeing other people knowing computers and you don't.
Yeah.
But you know that if I started this thing, I know it.
Yeah.
So it was also like kind of thing where you went into it trying to prove a point as well, where you're like, man, I've seen other people do it. It was kind of hard. I didn't do it in high school, but I think I can do this thing.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a compounding of like curiosity now, like, what's about these computers? What's happening here?
Yeah.
And interacting with computers as well. I think it was one of the big things where you just get a laptop, but you can only play games. And for my mind, it was just trying to understand what's happening behind all of this, So I think it was now a curiosity-driven venture of like trying to figure out like what really is happening, who's making these things, and how do they work?
How do they work?
What's the 1+1? And I think that's basically why I ended up. One of the reasons I ended up on that track.
Yeah. Were you in at Dartmouth, right? You're doing computer science now. Are you like, are you managing, enjoying it, or you're just like, I'm doing this to finish my 4 years? Because eventually you're now in a big tech company, so it means you're really good at it. So what is now driving you to be like, to even enter that space where you're now even getting internships at like Google, right? Is it still the same curiosity, or it's like now there's something else?
For that one, I think the ambition, especially at Dartmouth, was probably just driven by seeing that other people that you are in the dining hall with are going to these companies, and you start to question like, okay, if this guy is going there and I know this guy, this is my friend, then I should also be able to go there, right?
All right.
And I think that's also one of those advantages of those colleges, because you're rubbing shoulders with people who are doing insane stuff, right? You see some other guy is playing in the Olympics. Like, if this guy is playing in the Olympics, then I should be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what ended up happening with me going to Google, especially my second year of college for internship. There was this guy called Ebenezer. He did the same internship, like a Google internship.
Yeah.
And I was just curious about how he did it. Was asking him questions, and he kind of showed me the path of how he had done it, right? So I think it was also like a matter of like finding people who had done what you wanted to do, I think that's also one of the principles that kind of applies looking back when you connect the dots. Even coming into the US, it was kind of identifying like, okay, this guy is going to the US. Then I should talk to that guy because he probably knows how to do it.
Yeah.
And the Dartmouth was the same thing. Like, okay, this guy is from Ethiopia. He's working at Google. He's doing that. And I should probably talk to that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just approached the guy and he showed me like, okay, this is how it's done. You apply here. These are some of the internships that are possible. You interview here, you do whatever. And yeah, from then on I applied, then I got in. So, but included in that was also some level of planning because you had to have done something before you could go to Google, right?
Yeah.
I had been a teaching assistant. It was also like a building block. I had gone to Ghana my freshman year, summer, for some computer science internship. It was just on my resume. And I had joined some computer science thing. So it was a combination of getting help from other people, but also building block by block, I guess, my resume over a long time with the goal of going there. So I think it was just a lot of these things.
On a principle basis, right? Do you think that it's like saying it's important to expose yourself to maybe people who are doing great things, or also surrounding yourself like with people who are doing great things, and from that you're like, because we are the same, like sometimes we pass in the same hallways. If they can do it, I can do it too. You think it's speaking to that? Because I'm thinking there's this thing that people always talk about. I don't know, like they say, you read Outliers, right? So I have this theory. I have this theory that if there's an Elon Musk who's probably born in Africa, doesn't have the exposure of all those other tech people. So him being a typical Elon Musk will never happen because he's not exposed or surrounded by people who can make that Elon Musk come out. Do you think that's a big...
Definitely. Definitely. Because a big principle, I guess, of mine as well is just like you have to stand on the shoulders of people.
Yeah.
Like some things, when you surround yourself with people who have done what you want to do, right? Like what was going to take you 10 years to do, it would probably take you like a year or like even a couple months, because some people just pull you up. You don't have to make mistakes. You just get information straight up to the point.
Yeah.
And continuously seeking these places where the intellectual conversations that you want to have are being had is invaluable, because that's where you meet the people who you want to be.
Yeah.
And you also start to understand whether you actually want to be those people, because sometimes you want to be someone and you, at the end of the day, the way they are, you don't want it, right?
Yeah.
So it gives you a way to kind of role play what you're gonna be in the future, but also learn as well. So, but
all right, yeah. Now, you've done internships. How do you eventually become Google employed full time, or it's just building on the fact that you interned there a couple of times?
Yeah, that one was the play. So the play was to get in there and never get out.
Yeah,
because what would happen is that once you get in as an intern, you go back for the second time, for the third time, you don't need to interview for a full-time role, right?
Okay.
So it's a pipeline, because at the end of the day, when I joined the company, I was off and running, because it's a way of like it's a way of them training new employees basically, and they've invested in you. So they would want to let you go to Facebook or Microsoft. So I just worked my ass off. I think that was like my junior summer, third year summer. Then I got a return internship, a full-time offer.
Yeah.
And the full-time offer, was just like choose the location you want to do and you interview with a couple managers.
Wow. So would you say like that's the best way to get into like these FANG companies or or big tech, just like being like interning there, or like, well, tech has changed now, but
Yeah,
would you
tech
say
is changing. It's continuously changing, right? But when I was in college, I think it was one of the ways where you could just easily go to big
Mhm.
tech. But I think there's many ways, especially now the industry has changed so much with uh, layoffs happening, AI stuff
Mhm.
happening, the economy. So the game has changed a little bit.
Mhm.
But when I was in college, it was one of the best ways if you just wanted to to get an offer.
Yeah. And
But
mhm.
but people had different strategies. Some people would just interview, get multiple offers, then play against them to get the highest bidder, that kind of thing. So people were optimizing for different things. But for me, from then, I was also optimizing for what is it called? For immigration, because like immigration was
Yeah,
also like just at the
security.
back of my mind. Yeah, like
Mhm.
yeah, I can go get a lot of money at that startup, but like my considerations are different than someone who doesn't have to face the immigration beast, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of the
No.
things that was in my mind.
Right. Google now.
Oh
How's
yeah.
Google, man? How's Google? To the layman, like
Mhm.
you're an ex Google software engineer, right? Like the big tech companies are glorified. Some would say over glorified, right?
Mhm.
Of course, now they even changed. How was your experience there? And like, say, maybe as a building block to eventually say, okay, I'm done here. I got to do my own thing. Because I don't think you're coming to Dartmouth and you're like, I want to do my own thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Coming
Yeah,
into it's a whole you what you know at that point is very little in like
yeah,
like as a student, life as a student is very different. Like at least for me, I mean, you had work like as a student, everything at least on a scholarship, everything was taken care of, right? Like food,
yeah.
immigration. You
Hmm.
just call these guys like, yo, this is what's up. But going into big tech, I mean, just going to your question, it was it was in I mean, I had been there before. So my first summer as a student was the one that was
Okay,
mind-boggling. So going
okay.
back was like, okay, I'm going back home at this point because
Hmm.
I had been an intern there. But from my perspective, it was just like getting into a place of privilege, first of all.
Yeah,
Like getting into a place where there's a lot of smart people. Yeah, I met some really sharp people where you realize that, holy smokes,
yeah.
these people are super smart. Um, but it was also a place of learning. You know,
Hmm.
I joined a distributed systems team. I didn't know what the hell was happening there, and the first one, almost all the two, I was just learning. And what was really
Yeah.
intriguing was just like learning how these companies, it's just like it's a global company, and how the software that we made was running everywhere, and if anything happened to it, it would stop a lot of things from happening, right?
Yeah.
So it was just like mind-boggling and also just exciting to see how software is being built at, at the most innovative of companies.
Were you at your first time? Were you
Mhm.
like intimidated and like saying, I'm now going to like work at like big company like Google, like that's like a bigger tech company, or you're like, I'm excited for the opportunity, to challenge myself because I work in tech too,
Mhm.
and soon after college, I was like, me, I just want to secure a 9 to 5. Big tech will see you later. Like
Yeah,
that was my idea of it. So I'm wondering about your approach because mine was a timid approach to the industry.
it was like you want to go step by step,
Yeah,
then
that's how I was
you
looking
can
at it. Well, maybe it's different parts, but yeah.
I think from my perspective as well, it was also, I said this earlier, I had some people that I know
Yeah.
who were working there, 2 or 3, like from different Ethiopia, whatever, Zimbabwe. So these guys were doing it. So I was like, I mean, I can do it too, right? So it was, my approach was mainly shaped by like, okay, I'm just here to work. I wasn't really intimidated because I knew that I could do it, right? And I seen other people do it, because I think some of the intimidation really comes from not seeing other people doing it and you being the first person to do it and not knowing how that looks like, right? So this was just, super helpful to have people who we share the same background to have done it. So it really removed, like, where say I'll be scared and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know why I was not scared, to be quite honest. I should have been.
You're a different breed. No, but I get it though. Like most of like our fears come from ignorance and lack of knowledge. And when you're saying, well, I would assume so, right? I don't know how accurate that is. But when you're saying that, you had people who were there, and like are doing it. And the more you see people who are almost like you, and they're doing what you're like, that's where you're more convinced I can do it. So when you're going in, you're like, yeah, my fellow comrade, similar background, everything. And I talk to him. He's just a simple guy. He does it. I think I can do it too.
Yeah, I can do it too. You validate your mind. Yeah.
That conviction. Yeah. So I understand it. Well, like, how was the working environment? You were saying like for 2 years they were teaching you a lot. You didn't know a lot of stuff. You know how they say your resume, you need to have this, then you get it. And like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think what happened with me, unfortunately, but fortunately, was that I went into one of the hardest teams in the company. So these guys were building some distributed scalable architecture, and that's like some very hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just learning after learning, basically like the fundamental principles of building software and running it at scale.
Yeah.
Like they had architecture that if it goes down, then some critical part of the company goes down. So it was hard at the beginning. Like it was very hard. Like it was some hard stuff to wrap my mind around. But over time, I started to improve. And also I got some assistance as well within the company itself. Like you had engineers. Those are friendly guys. And that's also what I liked about the company. It's just there's a sense of lax within the company where you don't have to feel intimidated to ask questions.
Yeah.
And people just help you without judging you. So I got a lot of help to get up and running. But towards the mid, like after 1 or 2 years, I knew what was happening and I could understand where our product was within the stack. But if I can give you an example of what my team looked like, it was like some guys, like they had PhDs. There were 3-4 guys who had PhDs, who were professors, and they came back.
Yeah.
There was a guy who was a staff engineer who had been at the Google for the longest of time, like since 2003.
Yeah.
So these are like infrastructure teams which have solved hard problems. Then there was also there's some 1 or 2 whiskeys. Those guys knew what they were doing. And there was us also like just new hire. So the team usually never used to hire like new grads. So that was the setting that I went into. But what was beautiful was just like, just knowing that once I learn this, it's going to take me to some level that will make it easier for me to understand. Like when you go to Python from C++, you can do the translation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite a journey.
Wow. Okay. So I'm also I'm also looking at you and like saying you're doing distributed systems. I'm like, oh, maybe I can do it.
My man, you can do it. You just need to read. That's the thing.
Yeah.
When your
But did
job
you-
forces you to go buy a book on Amazon, then you know that you're on fire.
Oh, that's what they're doing?
No, not they force me. Me, I realized that here I need to go and read.
You
So I
do?
bought some books and I sat down and I read.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
read
wow. It's like you're
the
back in
stuff.
college, is it?
Yeah, it's like you're back in college. You're like reading. You're like, shit, I should have gone to that class.
Oh, that is crazy. Wow. The thing though, like they're like the social part of it, like the
Mhm.
social part of it, how is it like being at Google and just like
Man, I would always cherish my time at Google. It was a good time.
yeah.
Like in terms of like just the company providing services that you need,
Mhm.
from food, insurance, paying you well, taking
Mhm.
care of you,
Yeah.
fundamental. They also had a lot of events inside. It was just a good working experience. Like
Mhm.
you can never, I think you can never top that
Yeah.
because they do put effort into that. But
Yeah.
also, I think my social experience as well, because I was working on an infrastructure team, it was mostly older guys, PhD guys. So my social experience was a little bit different compared to if I was working in more like product facing, like Google Maps. It's a
Mhm.
different mix of people. It's younger, more energy, and
Okay.
different vibes. And I was also working in Google Cloud, which is a little bit more uptight because they deal with infrastructure and stuff like that. But socially, I think I had best of both worlds. I can never say anything bad about it.
Did you ever break production at some point?
Oh, I almost.
Yeah.
I would see people breaking production each and every time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like now, it's insane the way it's very hard to break production.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of tiers to protect
There's too
for
much. Like it's
Mhm.
very hard. The bug has to be very subtle for it to break production. At least it was working, because the
Mhm.
amount of testing that happens before something is rolled out, and
Yeah.
the way they
Yeah.
roll it out is like they don't just push it everywhere. They push it into one thing. It sits there for
Yeah.
5 days. Then they push it to the second thing, third, fourth,
Mhm.
fifth, sixth. So it becomes very hard. And we were managing like 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, like sales, whatever things where you have to deploy stuff. But the redundancy there was it's very hard, but it happens.
So, what makes you decide then say, okay, I think I've gained enough experience for me to stand on my own and you know, venture into like entrepreneurship with the buddy you met in college? Like,
Yeah.
what gives you the confidence and what is the motivator? You know, say, okay, this is a problem I can solve on my own, like standing outside a bigger company like that. Because,
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
mm,
But in terms of like what motivated me to like the pre-context to like all of this was like, even though when I was at Google, like a lot of times there's always these people who are just tinkering with stuff. Like
mhm,
on the side, I would try to build some website,
mhm,
try to deploy something, try to do something, try to do X,
yeah,
try to, you know, see people on Twitter who are building these small businesses and they're making money without working anywhere. I'm like,
yeah,
yo, I gotta create something of my own, right? So I
mhm,
was just always in that mode of like, what's happening? And after work, I would come back home and just sit down and try to write something, some code down
yeah,
to create something, right? And yeah, this two, like the whole like 2 3 years I was at Google, I was mostly like, just on the side, trying to figure out some edge, right? Then when the ChatGPT AI stuff came out,
mhm.
there was just a boom of people writing these small technologies and talk with your PDF and making millions of dollars. So I was like, yo, why, I'll make myself a Chrome extension that does X, Y, Z, right? And I try to call people. Then, some people like they were like, they just did. I mean, it wasn't just a right time for them.
Yeah.
But then I called Michael, and that's when Michael was like, let's jump on it. Let me make the designs. Then I was like, okay, let's go. So yeah, we just started tinkering around with that, right? And I had heard about Y Combinator, but I actually didn't know what it was. So I started looking more into Y Combinator, and we just applied and showed what we were building and pitched the idea. And we ended up getting in. And the pretext to that was more driven towards like trying to build something of our own. Like I personally thought that like working at these companies, I had some superpowers to build something. So it was just so motivating to get funding to go and build out something that you wanted to build.
Were you shocked, or it was like, is it something that you're like, you know when you're sending a risky text and then you send it, then you just leave it there and see what happens? Or is it something you're like, intentionally, I want to see what, I'm waiting for a response and all those things, and it changes my life, or it's something that you're like, yeah, we'll see if they take me in, and so it's going to happen.
I think once we applied, it's just because Michael also is energy around this startup stuff. So it just became a ball of energy where we were just like very bullish. So I actually took a flight and I went to Seattle, and I was actually editing the what is it called? The interview before we submitted on the flight. Then Michael submitted it. Then when I landed, we just hacked up something. So it just became something that we actually wanted to do. Yeah. And Michael also had some background in trying to build some stuff he was building in Zambia, these things. And I also wanted. So it just became two people who were high fire and wanted to build something, right? And luckily what ended up happening was that we got the interview and did the interview. It was a scary interview. Like, you see the people that you see in TV and that guy is in front of you. You're like, So, like, so what's your idea? Right? No jokes. You're like, Right? It was a scary moment. Then once we did that, the next day we got in. It was just a surreal moment, you realize that holy shit, this is not real.
Like hell? A different environment, different
environment. Like it's now separate from the big tech. It's its own world of like startups and things happening there, which is separate. So that was the journey of us getting into Y Combinator. It was mostly like built something, then we decided to apply, then getting an interview. We got a second one, then we ended up getting in. But it needed some work.
Yeah. Were you and Michael like really close friends, like in high school, like in college or something? Because I saw he had started is it 3 startups or so?
Yeah. I mean, in college I was 1 year ahead of him. So we hung out because it's African. So we're hanging out, but we didn't really work on startups because we were taking different classes and stuff like that. So I was just working with different people in college, like some of my friends as well. But we hung out a lot because we're just Africans, and we'd go to events, play FIFA, all these things. But there wasn't really a conversation of like building. Each and every individual was doing their own thing.
So I'm trying to map it. Like, I'm saying that a lot of the steps, right, to here is born out of genuine curiosity, and then finding a validation from the environment. Like, okay, there's curiosity, and then there's a possibility of me doing it based on the information I have around me, people who I know are doing it. Right? That's what I'm saying. And maybe also with like the startup, you're like, it's based on genuine curiosity. I want to do something. And then boom, okay, this is happening. And then, there's someone also who I know who's got a startup background too. Yeah. and he's been doing something also. And then we make magic.
Yeah, you make magic. I mean, I agree with that. So one thing that I've realized is that like you can't, when they say you can't take a donkey to the river, that saying, I don't know, that saying.
You can take a mule to the river, but you can't force it to drink.
You can never make it drink, right?
Yeah.
So you can never force people to work with you or to do things with you. Sometimes you have to go to the places where people who are doing what you want to do are already doing it.
Yeah.
And you go meet someone there who you can do something with, right? So I think that's one of the things that I've also just learned, where if you need to do something, do it on your own for some time.
Yeah.
Then once you have something to show of it, meet with other people who are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Never try to convince people around you of your ideas. No.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a recipe for saying, I'm dad, I'm not paying guy. You see?
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be very demotivating if you share a lot of your ideas with a lot of people, the wrong people.
Yeah.
Because people are like, I'm tired. What are you talking about? Like political ideas, for example. Party that.
How are you gonna do this? Yeah.
Exactly. So what you need is to go actually find other people who are actually excited in that and try to talk with them and exchange ideas, and something good will come out of that.
I think it was Naval. I saw a video of him. He was saying networking is like, to some extent, is useless. So it's like, go build products, and then you would find people who want to align with what you're building.
Yeah.
Of course, you can network or do all those things, but the most important thing, build something. You're going to grow your community from what you're building.
Exactly. Build something, make that podcast, read that book, and you find people who gravitate towards you. They'll probably be doing the same things, and you can do things together, and that's it.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Right. So what is Ocular AI to the layman? We
are there now.
Yes. So you guys are now accepted to Y Combinator,
Yeah, so the journey to Y Combinator was more like, look, we think you guys can build a product. You have the energy, you have the passion, you have the curiosity, and you have the backgrounds. But whatever idea that you guys have, we don't really give too much care about it, because ideas change.
Yeah.
Right? As long as you are a good team which knows how to build and you can work together well, then we're gonna get you. So that's the core philosophy of Y Combinator. Right?
Okay.
Where they find these people who have skills, can build something, are passionate, are energetic. And the idea is the last thing that they really care about a lot of times, because what they've seen over the years is that ideas change. Right? What's really cool is like you need these hardcore driven people who keep on going at it even if things don't work well. So with Ocular AI, what happened? When we went into Y Combinator, our initial idea was to build like an internal search platform.
Okay.
So basically what it means is like you have a computer with 1,000 people. You have a company with 1,000 people.
Yeah.
But when you have 1,000 people working together, there tends to be silos of information. Right? For example, when you're working at Google, there might be someone working on something related and there's information that you want, but it's very hard to discover. Right?
Yeah.
So we set out to build a platform that would allow companies to basically create an internal search platform that is sort of like an internal Google, where if you want to find something, you can just type it out, find it out, open it up, or reach out to the person who has it. So that was the initial idea.
Yeah.
And that idea, our presumption turned out not to... It's kind of true, but like we were not the right people to build that product. The first thing was like, it's a very... Like it's something that you have to sell to enterprise customers, and it's needed by companies with thousands of employees, right? And
Yeah.
getting it off the ground with our backgrounds, networks was kind of hard. We tried to build it out, but we couldn't really sell it. Right? We couldn't even get into the rooms where it needed to be sold. So we decided to change our idea into something else. Right? Because also one of the main challenges in building the initial version was that, like, even if you get the data around, all of it, like when you search, it's still messy. You need to clean it up. You need to make sure that it's ready to be searchable and stuff like that. So that was the main impediment actually in us building something. Like, for example, if you index your email period, when you want to search them, you probably get some adverts in there. You get all this stuff that doesn't even relate to your work. And it happens a lot with things in companies. Like there's some Google Docs that people just write some random stuff, and you don't want that to pop out. So from then we decided to pivot more into building a platform for people who are so we want to build a platform for people who are training AI models, right? We want to offer them the tools that they can use to annotate, label their data, and train their models. So basically an end-to-end system. And the reason is that a lot of companies, they have a lot of data already, right? But they are seeing these advantages of AI, like, oh, this person, there's these models which do X, which do Y.
Yeah.
But there isn't enough, or like there's no tools that allows them to get their data and come out with a model. So what do we want to do? We want to create something in between. So Ocular AI, you come with your data, and at the end, there's a model that comes out that you can leverage in your business.
Okay.
So that's the whole premise.
Yeah. Well, that is more complicated than the initial idea, although the initial idea was harder to implement.
Yeah, the initial idea was a little bit harder to implement.
Wow. I don't know if you're at liberty to talk about the technologies like you leverage for building the platform.
In terms of the technology, I think it's just the normal stack. Like you have Python, like Azure, some UI, like JavaScript, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
At least for the EP right now. So just like more tech stack, yeah.
So you get funding after the interview, or like after you're done, like
Oh,
after the 3 months. After the 3 months at the thing.
So with funding, how it works is that when you get into Y Combinator, you actually get some initial money from Y Combinator. They invest in you. Then you go through the program, which is 3 months. So what the program allows you to do is to get the idea off the ground.
Yeah.
And what it means is actually registering a company, creating an initial MVP, getting some customers initially who are interested in this thing that you're building. And you're doing this with a group of other companies as well. So it's like you go to a college semester where everybody's focused on that. And once you do that, at the end of the Y Combinator batch, which is usually 10 weeks, you get to fundraise. So fundraising basically is pitching your idea and the product and the traction that you have at that point to VC, saying that, look, this is what we've been working on. We have 20 people who've actually paid us real money to use this thing. And we would love to raise maybe $2 million to actually make sure that we get enough resources to make this idea a reality. Because you need money to build companies, you need to hire engineers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you raise money both from Y Combinator, but from also like some venture capital people, firms, at the end of the Y Combinator batch. So the goal is that at least at the end of the batch, you have everything that you need to build a company.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a wonderful program. I think it's one of it's an insane program. I think the amount of value that the companies that have gone through Y Combinator has produced is insane. Like you're thinking about the Airbnbs, the Stripes,
Yeah.
the DoorDashes, all of this,
Dropbox.
the Dropboxes, a lot of
Mhm.
companies that I'm even forgetting who have gone through this program. So it's a really good program.
When you are conceptualizing the idea, or like now it's at the late stages, are you thinking about the competition around it? Is there any competition to the idea, or it's just like this is a unique idea or something? I don't know.
Yeah. So those are some of the learnings that we did.
Yeah.
A lot of like for the second time, I think most of the focus was actually in talking to people, like who were working in the space where they needed to build these computer, like these models. Specifically, right now it's like computer vision models, right? We were asking them like, what tools are you guys using? Who helps you in this process? What does that process look like? And we went to a lot of conferences. So it was mostly a journey of actually learning about the industry, the options that are available, and what makes those options not really suitable for some of the things that need to be done by these companies. So yeah, it was just mostly like talking to people and learning. And that's what I realized, that a lot of times, most of these companies actually need to solve a problem that people are having, and finding that problem is very hard.
Yeah.
And it's the cornerstone of any company.
I know there's a lot to delve in when it comes to, the experiences at Y Combinator, and just generally starting from an idea to something that is now a product to ship. Maybe another time. But what
definitely. We should jump into the future. Next podcast, Zim. Talk about Zim and tech sector and Zim. That would be an interesting.
Oh yeah, that was one of my questions next ask you. But what is before we get to that, maybe you might give us a little bit of your perspective. What is a success story for you when you're looking at Ocular AI? Maybe for you individually, or as a CTO of the company. That feels heavy, bro. CTO.
Yeah.
Louis Murerwa.
You gotta make sure that things work. I mean, for the company, the goal really is to transform the way people train AI models, right? Basically from conception, from 0 to 1. We need to help companies unlock the value that is held in their data, right?
Okay.
We have a lot of companies who are failing to do that, but that's where the competitive advantage actually lies in the future. Like you need to make sure that you have something custom model that gives you an edge in the market. So success for Ocular is actually making sure that we help as many companies as we can possibly be to achieve this goal, and be a big player, of course, and make sure that our product actually is needed and creates value for people. Right? I think that's one of the things that we need to would be a success for us.
What is the status right now? I think you're saying you're launching sometime. I can't remember. What is the status of the company right now?
The status right now is that we're launching. So we're launching this new product. It's already built it out, and we're launching actually starting tomorrow. So we will just launch different parts of the product that we have, and we'll also get people to join, sign up. So we'll get a list of people, and we can personally onboard them starting next week to show how what we have works.
Like, what does launching mean? You know how in the movies it's like they have a product and then you're trying to get users to sign up, and then and then they're faking users, and then all those things. So in the real world, what does it look like for you?
I mean, it can look like a different things, but for us, the way it's looking like is that we need to just state our position, at least initially, who we are within this space, what we do,
Yeah.
what product offerings we have, show people how our product looks like, and also at the end of the day, get a list of like companies who want to sign up. Then once that's done, once we have a list of people who want to sign up, we'll personally onboard them, because the product, like, it's very hard for someone to just jump in there and do things.
Yeah.
We will personally, me and Michael, just onboard someone, show them how it works personally, end to end. Right?
Yeah.
And now it means that our product is out there, because right now we're just building and it's somewhere, but you can't access it. But once we launch, it means that you guys, people can reach out to us, and we can onboard them, and we'll start reaching out to people as well to try out the product.
Yeah, big moves, man. Big moves.
Big moves. A lot of learning, man. It's just like a lot of learning, and exciting, scary, but it's beautiful when you build something that people can use, man. That's the goal.
In the way we say, Sesavalina, we're afraid of you.
Sesavalina.
Yeah. Jimmy Watinoshka. I don't know how you say it in Shona, but yeah.
Jimmy Watinoshka.
Yeah, Jimmy. Like, you're the guys with fear. Yeah. All right.
The other question, you said personal accomplishment.
Oh yeah, for you as an individual.
Yeah, man. I think there's beauty in building things that other people can use. I think I find beauty in that, and satisfaction. So if I can build something that a lot of people, like millions of people, can use and find value in it, I think that's the biggest accomplishment. Because, like, for me, for example, it's just like you start with an idea and it becomes a real thing and people can use it. And that's what I really enjoy most. And that, if that happens, that would be a personal accomplishment of mine.
What do your parents think now? Moana has a company. What are they saying?
Right now it's still early on. They're just like, what is this guy doing?
They're still unbelievers.
To understand it, eh?
They're still unbelievers, so they're still not. Don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I also think like it's because it's two different worlds, man. Like trying to translate what's happening and the meaning of it into the Zimbabwean context is very hard.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they know that I'm trying this thing out and stuff like that. But as parents, they're always worried, And
you're now playing with people who are giving you a lot of money. That's always the conversation. Yeah. I know this is a big conversation, but maybe a few thoughts, on maybe a perspective on like the Zimbabwean or African startup industry or market in general. Like, what is missing, what is there, or what do you think you building this has exposed you to that is not there or should be there?
Yeah. I mean, what I've realized through this journey is that a lot of startups that you see, the Googles, the Amazons, they don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Right. They're working in a well-functioning system that has a solid banking, legal, manufacturing, you name it, systems, right? Yeah. So Amazon, when it wanted to accept orders, it didn't think first of all to say, okay, shit, I need now to build like there's no APIs for people to pay on the website. It was already there.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of these things you realize even us as a startup, a lot of things are already there. It's just building on top of each other over a long time. If we need to register a company, there is actually a company that does that. We can just log in, we'll get our results back. The company is registered.
Yeah.
If we need to store our money in a bank, there's a bank for startups where if we put our money there, we know that it's going to be there next year with the same value.
Yeah.
All right.
Same value is important.
Right. With the same value, because you need to pay people. Right.
Yeah.
If we need to do X, it's there. Right. If we need to host something, there's always electricity. So building startups over here, it's more like you're trying to solve one problem, right? Which is the problem that you're focusing. But now when you go into a system that doesn't work, right? For example, our system in Zimbabwe. Now, yes, you've built your product, but how do you receive payments? Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's say you want to import something. How do you import something? So the hardship, one of the hardships is basically trying to build everything at once. You end up trying to solve problems which don't even align with your business because the infrastructure around you is not even working.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the major things we might need to think about is like, how can we actually build the infrastructure that's needed for these small companies to even survive?
Okay.
The right banking, the right legal infrastructure, all these things. Right.
No.
And another example, I even laughed. Dangote wanted to build a refinery in Nigeria. And the guy was looking for cranes to hire. Would you find a crane in the whole country? He had to import trucks and cranes to build to build a refinery.
Yeah.
So now you see the company is even like, that's not even part of the problem you're solving. You should just go and hire. If you're in the US, you go and hire some cranes there. You do your work, you return them.
Okay.
But back home, it's just it's very hard. But I think there's potential with I mean, at least Starlink, if people can get it at an affordable price, we know that the infrastructure in terms of like internet, we have it.
Yeah.
Now we just need the markets, at least specifically to Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Electricity and maybe even banking. Then we can at least start from there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about it like that. Like, yeah, like here your problem is isolated.
It's isolated. You're solving one problem, and the government is hand holding you. Everybody hands hold their startups to some extent.
Yeah.
There's so many deals, like you can run on Azure, Amazon, your servers for a long time for free.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things for free because it's like you're a student. When you're a student, you have so many deals, right? Especially for a startup, you have so many deals. So it's easier for you. Like, it's not easy to build a company, but it makes it easier relatively when the whole system is being built around you to succeed.
Yeah. No, I get that. I think it's a very important thing to know. Why would, I don't know, maybe you're not the best placed person. You know how when you do something, people always come to you for advice. Like, you did it, so what's your advice? What would you say to someone who's in Zim or Africa, or even in America, who's trying to build something, a startup, get into this Combinator thing? What would you say to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would just say, like, they have to learn to build stuff.
Yeah.
Build something that someone wants and kind of identify it, right? Like, a lot of this stuff, like most of these companies, they're building a service.
Yeah.
Or something someone wants. So let's say if you're in Zimbabwe or like you're a young kid, the best leverage is probably to give yourself or to equip yourself with skills that allow you to build something tangible that you can sell or give to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, last words.
Words?
A general philosophy on life, man. Like, to sum it all up, like, we've talked about it, like, surrounding yourself and with people who are doing great things, position yourself, it's important. Paying attention to your curiosity and acting on it, and how it helps also to know that, to get the people around you validate some of the fears that you might have and stuff. So looking back to all of it, to now and where you're going, what would be, like, you say is your general philosophy on life in general? Like, how do you look at life, or how do you interpret what has happened or what is happening?
I mean, I think for me, I'll say the general words is like I'm just attempting to make meaning of life around me on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And one thing that has really helped me is probably just reading books about specific topics that I'm troubled by. Like, if I'm troubled by startups, real estate, for example, I just bought a couple books and read through it.
Yeah.
Some of the software stuff, read books. Economics, investing, read books. Political stuff that we've been discussing, something that always bugs me. So now I'm just reading books, trying to understand. So I think just buying books and reading those books around the topics that you're curious about is invaluable. I think that would be my last words.
Yeah. No, I can attest to that. The books part. What's one book that you would like recommend to somebody, or that you'd be like, this book, put it in my coffin. I'm dying with this one.
Ooh,
like this.
hey.
Or maybe that's a hard line. Maybe you can't pick one, but just one. Just name drop.
I'll take the Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Oh, that's the one I had in mind. Actually, I thought you were gonna pick it. Pick that one.
Yeah. That one is a good book, man. I feel like it's some nuggets in there, crystallized into small beats.
For me, Outliers.
Outliers?
Yeah.
What about Outliers?
I think it revolutionized the way I just thought about success in general. Like, in as much as, like, fine, you work hard, it's important to work hard, right? It's important to identify opportunities, but it's also important to understand that a big part of it is not entirely up to you, even though you can do everything right.
Yes.
There's an element of luck, like Naval says the same thing, right? In the Almanac of Naval, there's an element of luck, but you can put yourself, you can put yourself in a position where you can create that vision of luck, or draw yourself closer to that luck. But it's important to understand that it matters most of the times. The environment, upbringing, and basic people you surround yourself with, and all those things are like,
I think that there's some truth in it. I'll give you one exercise. After reading that book, when you see the people in the US, a lot of Zimbabweans, their parents are teachers.
At home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either of the parent was a teacher. I was just looking at it and that counting around, realized that most of the parents were teachers of kids who ended up doing well, maybe in school.
You think so?
There's a correlation. I think there's an outliers thing that there's a correlation. If I look at the people, like if you look at the Mufara, like I can read people 10 here where their parents were teachers.
Wow.
But I don't know if it's a valid theory though. It's just a...
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just it. Like 10 is a good sample size, no?
It's a decent, yeah. But if you read them down, people that you know, you go ask them what their parents did.
Yeah.
It was a teacher.
Oh,
maybe not.
Maybe not. Hey, man. Thank you for your time, bro. Like, you don't understand how valuable this is.
Yeah,
I hope to see you on another episode.
Yeah, let's grind it out. This time let's focus on some Zim. Let's figure out. You can pick a topic and just dive into it.
Okay. Now, of course, I always enjoy our intellectual sparring. So
yeah,
it's definitely going to be an interesting one. So,
but yeah. Man, thanks for the invitation, man. It's a great chance to just talk here, and just have this conversation. Always a great time.
For sure, mate. Good luck with the launch.
Thank you, man. Excited. Let's see what happens.
All right. Okay. See you on the next one.
Let's go. I'll see you here.